So we talked about oil formation, right? And we talked about the maturation process, which is a high temperature, high pressure process. But there is a temperature range that the hydrocarbon, basically we call it temperature window for generation of hydrocarbon, and that is from 104 degree Fahrenheit. That's the minimum temperature that is required for that process, and then a maximum of any temperature basically, but after 300 degree Fahrenheit gas only can be formed. And this is the depths at which these temperatures can be observed: 5,000, 10,000 and 15,000. And basically this is how the generation happens. So one thing that you need to consider is that how the temperature is changing with depths, and usually as you go below underground and you go further underground, the temperature increases. You see the x-axis is temperature, the y-axis is depth, which is increasing from 0 to 12,000 in this figure. But the rule of thumb is that the temperature is 1.1 degree Fahrenheit per 100 feet. So that's how much temperature increases as you go down. Per 100 feet, 1.1 degree Fahrenheit. So if you go, for example, 10,000 feet underground, then that means your temperature should increase by 10,000 multiplied by 1.1 degree Fahrenheit per 100 feet, right? And this cancels by this one, so 100 by 1.1, that is equal to 110 degree Fahrenheit, right? Now if your surface temperature is 60, then 60 plus 110 would be the temperature at the depths of 10,000, and that is equal to 170 degree Fahrenheit, right? This is a rule of thumb. It could be different. For example, in this picture you can see that at 10,000 feet you have a much higher temperature, 210 degree Fahrenheit, but this is what the rule of thumb if you don't have enough information about the temperature of the reservoir. So again, you need a source rock, right? Plants, animals, and proper condition, which means that it's a temperature pressure condition, right? That needs to be there. A long period of time it takes for those conversions from the remains of animals to hydrocarbon, and that's a long process. So next we're going to talk about the storage of hydrocarbons. And in the storage of hydrocarbons there are the rocks are basically the host for hydrocarbons, right? And in this picture you can see a piece of rock basically. This is called outcrop. Outcrop is a part of formation that is, you can see it on the surface. So this formation goes underground all the way to higher depths, but there is the outcrop of that formation on the surface that can be seen. And if you look at in micro scale into the rock, you see that there are basically grains. This rock is formed from small grains, and then in between those grains there are spaces that is filled with fluid, and usually underground these fluids are water, okay? And that's where basically oil and gas are stored. So underground basically storage of oil and gas is not really like a pool that you see. There are grains, and between those grains there are oil and gas. This is another picture that you can see another sedimentary rock, and there are grains, kind of circular shape grains, and in between these grains there are some spaces that fluid can be stored. Some of these basically spaces are connected together, some of them are isolated from each other, and we will talk about that later. So in general, this is the macroscopic view. These are in micro scale, so micrometer scale that we are talking about. And grains are there again, right? These are basically your grains, we call them, right? And between these grains there are spaces, and these spaces are the pores as we call them. So pores are the places where oil and gas are stored, right? And you see all these pores are connected to each other, so they can basically, the fluid can move from one pore to another pore, although these basically spaces or the diameter of this area is very small in micrometer. So based on this basically structure of the rock, we define two main properties of rocks. One is called porosity, another one is called permeability. So porosity and permeability are one of the most important concepts in petroleum engineering, so it's very important for you guys to understand it very well. So in the next video I'm going to start talking about porosity.